So, fellas, we have the classic debate between communism and capitalism with a fantastic new twist. Defending socialism is Econoboi, who virtually everyone finds unbelievably irritating, even on the left. You see, let me know if you've heard this one. His ideal government just hasn't been tried yet. But he has a brand new economic model to, by his own words, incrementally,
So again, I do advocate for iteration and incrementalism.
shift our economy to a fully socialist one.
Can you hire employees in my ideal system?
Yes.
The answer is no.
The only issue is that he speaks in self-flating circles that I'll be able to help us unpack. Defending capitalism is destiny. The enemy of my enemy is not my friend. My friends are my friends. The enemy of my enemy is useful. And destiny is access to the left that the right just doesn't have. Anyone being capitalist and on the left is such a joy to watch. Put on your helmets. Things are about to get pretty tarded. First, I need you to hear the moderator's reaction to Econoboi's intro to really set the mood.
Because they've engaged in a process of socializing at least a very large chunk of their economies. And we can see kind of the fruits of that, where they have reasonably decent levels of economic growth, employment, good unionization, things like that, high equality. And I think that those are just good examples of the process where I want to move society towards.
Okay, well, thanks for being here. Destiny, why is capitalism the superior system to whatever Econoboi just said?
You're gonna notice a reoccurring theme of Econoboi explaining his position and the person having no idea what he's talking about, and he uses it to dodge questions and whatnot, but Econoboi is gonna be like, I guess I'll say the exact same thing over and over again. And that's gonna be kind of a thing that people really get fed up with about him. But first, Destiny makes a very astute point about the double standards of buying flags on Amazon.
Because capitalism is based. I just want to start off by saying that I spent a lot of time on Amazon because I was going to respond to Econoboi's horrible appropriation of violent communist flags and other stuff in the background. I was going to buy a bunch of Nazi, and they don't actually sell Nazi flags on Amazon. So I don't appreciate that. I feel like it's very one-sided in how they run things over there.
Now, this is a good point at how communist iconography is allowed in virtually all areas of society, even classrooms.
Assignment stamped with the face of Kim Jong-un, followed by the word bomb. Various flags, posters, and political signage plastered throughout the room. Pictures KCRA3 investigates obtained from a parent whose child was enrolled in Gabriel Geip's AP government class.
But you can't even buy a Nazi flag on Amazon. I mean, Ilhan Omar's daughter had a hammer and sickle in her profile, called for revolution, and of course the end of capitalism. But before you criticize her, let's just imagine her ideal world. You see, a reason why people want Econoboi to die in a wildfire is because his evidence involves you just imagining what it'll be like.
Of like, what do the holding corporations actually own? And so let's just imagine we get to like my ideal end state. We've got like 100 different of these holding corporations, right? How exactly would you socialize the whole entire economy? I can tell you what I would maybe imagine would happen. So So in a total idealized system, which again, I have a hard time imagining, I think that we can get to like 75% social ownership, and then, again, these genuinely sticky issues come up, which I think are very relevant criticisms to point out. But I can tell you kind of what I would roughly imagine. Let me just answer the question. Just let me answer the question directly. Okay, I'll imagine an ideal end state, right? So what we might imagine is that, because I'm not hearing much in terms of concrete reasons why my model would be like deeply allocatively inefficient or Wick, there's nothing vague about what I'm saying. I'm saying we have all these asset managers now. Just imagine a system where they're all public instead of privately owned, okay? Imagine that, right?
Oh, just imagine matching his potatoes au gratin face into a locker. Just imagine it. So we usually have Marxists that are subversive and no theory. Then there's the useful idiot Marxists that have no idea what they're talking about and just tell you to read Marx. Then there's the shitlibs that have no idea their progressivism is literally just an offshoot of Marxism, so they just call you racist. All these types of people are very annoying to debate. But Econoboi slams his fat ass on the bar and lowers it below the Earth's crust because, you see, he has made up his own socialism.
I'll imagine an ideal end state, right? So what we might imagine is that you still have about, what we have now. We have like 25% retail investors. They're still just doing their little individual investing. I don't think that my socialism, I guess, I don't really care if people individually go out and invest money if they want.
It's not just his socialism, it's also his system. Imagine how frustrating it is to debate somebody and they can always defer back to, it's like the ultimate Mott and Bailey. They can always defer to their system they made up. And when you disagree with his system, he's like, oh my God, let me explain the thing that's never existed, even to other historians, to you again.
Have the same competitive dynamics and incentives to do the exact same thing under my system as they do under our current system. Started in a garage. I got, Trump says I got a small loan of $1 million. Well, obviously, if we horizontalize a lot of that capital and have this much greater equality of opportunity, then ideally there'd be a lot more people that are able to actually live up to their full capabilities in my system versus the current system that we have now. Like, I don't think my system would abolish free speech. I don't think my system would not be democratic in nature. So the difference would be that, number one, my system is highly efficient relative. But you said you have the money. So again, in my system, people would still be able to make a lot of money, right?
Hold on, I'm sorry.
That's why, my system, you still have to have fiscal actors, and you still have to have things like antitrust. So my system would ideally, and you see this all across the world, the best systems will have public-owned assets, but then they'll also have adversarial regulators. And of course, to the extent that maybe some Marx historian would just say, no, Econoboi, you're totally wrong and misinterpreting Marx, it's like, well, whatever, my system's much more egalitarian, so that's why I prefer it.
Socialism. System. I just want to take a moment for us all to imagine giving this grace to the far right and their new systems they want to create while disavowing the violence of past systems. Imagine a white supremacist or a Nazi saying, come on, let's move to my system. I don't think anything bad will happen.
I don't think my system would abolish free speech. I don't think my system would not be democratic in nature.
So, Econoboi, you've clearly stated you're a white supremacist and you only want white people living in the United States. So what do you say to people that disagree with you or exhibit hesitancy in your prescriptions?
Do the transition or not only matters based on where you want us to transition to. Whether or not I want to go through a transition at all, I have to know what we're transitioning to is better than what we have now.
Yeah, and I've already admitted you don't know that. I've already admitted you don't know that. One system isn't going to be the same as another. You got to take some risks, goodness, obviously.
Colin,
Your ideal liberalism doesn't exist either. Your ideal tax code doesn't exist either. You got to make some leaps of logic, come on.
Jiminy Crickets, guys, you're acting like your system's perfect. What if we just start removing certain demographics from the country? We don't know how it's gonna work. Maybe it'll be better. If people on the right tried this approach that Econoboi has, that he seems to easily be able to just throw out there with little to no threatening criticism. Sure, he's being criticized, but it's not a threatening idea for him to have. This is how easy it is to be a communist. It's easier to be a communist than a paleo-conservative or a dissident right-winger or a pro-white advocate. Why is that? Because the right wing speaks honestly and in clear language, like men. The left speak almost exclusively in gypsy curses and Ouroboros circularly verbaic, garrulous, loquacious, spurious gynophonetics, all while being ultra condescending like you're a moron because their gibberish makes no sense. But Econoboi lays it out pretty clearly. He thinks we should just be run by a managerial technocracy.
Yeah, so I think that these things should be kind of technocratically managed. You can think of it sort of like the Federal Reserve, right? Where the Federal Reserve is kind of this quasi-independent private agency type situation, but it's more technocratically managed, ideally leading to better allocative efficiency. Because again, I do advocate for very strict technocratic management of these assets. So that's a completely direct answer to that question. I think there'd probably be some kind of superstructure, rules-based, independent technocratic management process. The decision-making process would be technocratic, and it would be very similar to what we see.
If I work for a company and there's a billion... No, it's fake because you keep saying you need technocratic. That's not saying anything. I'm asking, let's say that I work for a firm.
I didn't finish what I was saying.
I know, but you're just saying general.
Destiny, stop. You didn't let him say the same thing a 19th time. I've seen many struggle sessions in my life on the left. It's really all they have. This is my first time seeing a struggle session to his own personal idea that he individually has in his head that nobody else understands. But what exactly is a technocracy? A technocracy is a system of government or management where decision makers are selected based on their expertise in a specific field, often science or technology. In a technocracy, technical knowledge and competence drive policy and leadership, prioritizing efficiency and problem solving over political ideology or popularity. Oh yeah, dude. We haven't had a dose of that yet. If only we had technocrats in 2020. Why, then according to our completely apolitical experts, they would let us know that people aged 65 and older accounted for 81% of the virus deaths. And an analysis in July of 2020 would have found that the range was from 94% in Idaho to 70% in DC. So roughly 80% of people that died from the virus, if we had known this, were 65 and older. Then of course our enlightened centrist experts would have told us that, according to September of 2020, 6% of virus deaths listed the virus as the only cause of death, implying that these individuals had no comorbidities mentioned on their death certificates. So if only we had technocrats from 2020 that were completely apolitical, they would have found out that in July of 2020, 94% of the virus deaths averaged 2.6 comorbidities per death, and as of September 2020, they would have found out that 80% of the virus deaths, people were 65 and older. So obviously they would have had parameters for all of us to be able to go to work, go to school, because of the obvious data that we were given, interpreted, of course, apolitically. Econoboi, people hate you, and I love that they hate you. Especially when he's like, hey, the Soviet Union, didn't collapse, right? And then once he's told it did collapse, he's like, yeah, but it wasn't real socialism, it wasn't the good kind. You can't write it. You could write it. Don't write it.
I agree.
So
but in your
I'm
system,
saying
we have no idea if your system works at all, to be fair. Okay. Because you can't say that, well, in your system it would work perfectly, but in mine it would destroy it. We have no idea how your system would work.
We know 60-70% capital gains taxes don't work, right? So I mean, I think that my system, maybe would have a shot of working.
We don't know if your system can even maintain a functional society. So I don't think that's fair to say that we can just assume that. But I'm just saying that in your system well, you have no examples of it, so you can't possibly disagree with that.
Hold on. We have a system. Well, no, because we have even really bad socialist systems like the USSR, for instance, right? A terrible, awful socialist system. They had a functioning society, right? It wasn't like the whole entire society collapsed, right?
Wait,
is that funny? Hold on.
Wait. Well, it's funny because the Soviet Union literally did collapse. Okay, so I don't know why that would be the example.
No, the Soviet Union did collapse because, again, that was a socialist system. I've already said it's terrible, right?
Dude, where are these unlimited attempts for the right wing? The right wing gets a handful of chances, and then that's it. Can never be improved upon at all whatsoever. The left has way more chances, and way more opportunities to have even more chances, to the point where the proponent of this ideology is like, it's not like society collapsed. It did collapse. Yeah, but it wasn't done correctly. We can't do any of that. We can't have another opportunity to do it correctly, even by ourselves and just separating ourselves from what's going on and having our own communities in remote areas. Can we even do that? Can we get a do-over? Please? They always love to say that life is a race and black people are starting 20 meters behind with all these obstacles in front of them. Bro, the left gets to swing from the woman's tee with unlimited mulligans. Not a golfer? The left gets to play Call of Duty with wall hacks and aimbot. Don't play Call of Duty? The left gets to race in a Ferrari while we get a Dodge Neon. They get to do their crosswords in pencil. We're only allowed to do our crosswords in pen. We are never allowed to even rebrand without some leftist or liberal immediately attacking any advocacy for white people. But what I'm learning is that there's a certain level of resentment you have to someone who's an idiot, and then there's a certain level of resentment you have to someone that's being intentionally subversive. That synthesizes into a newfound frustration of not knowing if the person is stupid or trying to be tricky. I want you to think to yourself, is Econoboi gaslighting in this next part, or is he actually this stupid and up his own ass?
Yeah, I feel like we get the answer is oh, well, there would be rules to take care of that. And it's those rules I think are pretty important. It also seems like we're, at the end of the day, when we start to drill it down into this, all we've done is we've basically created capitalism with a different tax structure. So for instance, I'm very confused. You're advocating for a system of socialism where individuals can still start firms on their own and then scrape excesses from the surplus value created by their employees. That's a very strange. The only difference is we're just the initial investment comes from holding corporations that are capitalized with public funds. Is that the answer? Is that if I wanted to start a business, am I allowed to hire employees?
A question asked clear as day. Am I allowed to hire employees? That's the question. Let's see what the answer is.
If I wanted to start a business, am I allowed to hire employees?
Okay, so I feel so originally it's well, Econoboi, I'm not going to make you just completely, totally lay out a 500-page document of how exactly this works. And so what I answered to your question was, let's just imagine that it's a committee superstructure where, hey, we've accumulated $10 trillion of a sovereign wealth fund. We're going to take $1 trillion of that and do one new holding corporation that now has to go out and invest. I think that Wick is pretty specific on how the holding corporation.
Nothing that you just said there had anything to do with my question. And also,
you
I don't want to draw
how they
you.
get formed, and I
No, I asked if you can hire employees. Can you hire employees? Are you allowed to do that?
Okay. So if the new question is not how do you fund or do the holding corporations, but can you hire employees?
Hold on, wait. Just to be clear, before you said that, we can go back in the video. My question was literally just, are you allowed to hire employees? That was my question.
Wait, okay, Destiny, are you claiming you didn't ask me 100 times how do the new holding corporations get formed? Though that wasn't a question that was a mainstay that you've asked? I mean, really? Like, come on. You asked that like 5 or 10 times, and I feel like we've kind of been circling the drain on that.
Give me 1 second. Hold on.
Destiny, obviously feeling gaslit, doesn't know if his interlocutor is a moron or if he did it intentionally. That's really being gaslit when you don't even know the intention of the other person. Sometimes you know if someone's trying to gaslight you, but then you just... This is the level of frustration. Is he trying to be this dumb or subversive? Which one? Is it both? So Destiny goes and checks and comes back.
Public funds? Is that the answer? Is that like if I wanted to start a business, am I allowed to hire employees?
How would you hire employees? And I said, well, you'd probably have retail investors that would just individual sole proprietors.
I realized
that don't hire employees.
So my question was
just that you wanted to hire.
I'm just asking, like, how can you? I'm asking if you can hire employees. That was my question. Yes.
Okay.
I just found it. This is what Econoboi continuously sounds like to me.
Why didn't you make that play? Score for once.
Score what? A touchdown.
Score more points to win the game.
So I'm gonna, if any of you dicks say I'm not answering this question directly, I'm going to put myself on stream in a video game. Okay. So, can you hire employees in my ideal system?
Yes.
The answer is no. You would have to go to the capital owners, which are the public in this case, and get them to capitalize your business, and you'd have to have a shared ownership structure.
And if they pass it, that will be college level. Get it through your school.
I've said that
wait. Just to be clear, hold on. You're not saying you would go to the
again.
public. You would go to the holding corporations that are ran by technocrats.
To the holding corporations.
Yes. Okay.
I'm just saying the public because Wick gets triggered. Oh, it's actually the state. It's actually the government.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out as an individual right now.
Just tell me the team names of the sport. I'm just trying to figure out. I don't know what.
It's the second.
Football, baseball.
And you know, the public holding corporation would say, you know what, that sounds like a good idea. Here's $10 million. Go out and make a bunch of money. And, you know, here's some performance pay or whatever. It'd be a very similar system. Again, it's just that the ownership structure would be public instead of private. And that's a very specific example. I hope that is a really concrete, just you can the oil field services example. That's pretty concrete if you ask me in terms of imagining what it would look like.
I don't know what game you're talking about. What is
I'm talking about all the athletic sports that we love, but our teams always blow it.
As a goof? As a character? Econoboi is totally understandable. As a serious political pundit, he sounds like his mouth just met his own dick for the first time. Let's see how he handles obvious observations and criticism about his demeanor and ability to communicate from the chat.
$5 from Prismagic to say, Econoboi, chill on the smugness. People aren't dumb because they don't understand. You're a terrible communicator that can't explain unautistically.
Sure. Yeah, the guys who asked questions that I directly spoke about in the course of the debate, you know, of course, you know, it's me that has the problem communicating. I admit, look, I'm not the best communicator on the planet, but like, it does get a little bit frustrating when people like, you know, you've had like thousands of people that are like, Econoboi, your system's just capitalism. I don't understand how it's socialism. Answered 1,000 times in 1,000 different mediums. This literally started out with me writing a whole 3-part article series, fully explaining my exact transition, right? Yeah. Well, the 5,000 words was just the third part, right? It takes 30 minutes to read, right? And people are like, I don't understand it. How does it? I don't get it. And it's like, goddamn, I literally spelled it out. Like I, you know, it's like I read The Public Wealth of Nations and copied a lot of that stuff over. Like I read that book and was able to understand it. I don't think I'm using fundamentally different grammar than the guy. Like I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the world either. But you know, guys.
$5 from Blaine's Escape Corner to say, do you think if you keep answering the same questions with the same answers, you might suck at answering? Communication is on you to explain better.
No, I don't think so.
Is that hard to understand? Please just read the stats.
Oh my god. So let's end it here. I honestly don't know what Econoboi's purpose is other than to embarrass leftists. Who is he here for? He's not edgy, he's extra pompous, but his circular logic is barely Marxist and just something he made up. He doesn't even feign a human connection in his rhetoric. He pushes for socialism in name only and not even a Marxist socialism. His socialism is way more egalitarian and better. It'll just work. This just in. According to Econoboi's X account, he would like to announce his retirement from online politics. One would assume this has something to do with the insane amount of hate he's been getting for all the reasons I just showed you. Haha, he goes on. Note, recent drama had very little to do with this decision, though admittedly, the additional stress wasn't great. This was something on my mind for a long time, and I'd like to thank everyone who supported me over the last several years. Total cope. Yeah, I was already gonna leave anyway, that's why I was getting ready to have a conversation with Destiny, and I wrote thousands of words in this article on Substack, planning my departure. That's why I put so much effort into these things, instead of just leaving. I was really setting myself up to begin to succeed, and then I was already just going to walk away. And then we have Kyle Kulinski say, "This space is worse off without you. You're a real one." Classic. As he's on the way out, as he says he's not going to be around anymore, then Kyle Kulinski's like, "Oh man, that sucks, dude. I really liked having you around. Where were you the whole time he was around, Kyle?" They don't actually listen to what he's saying. It's just a person that calls himself a socialist. That's it. That's the only utility. They don't have to understand each other, what they're thinking, what they're saying. Are you brave enough to try to defend something indefensible? That's all they care about. Wow, I didn't see that coming. Apparently he's not going to be here anymore. Well, I guess that's kind of poignant. I was really hoping to see other videos of him, but sometimes the problem takes care of itself. Have a good one.